In the heart of rural Uganda, tucked between thick banana groves and dirt paths that twisted like brown veins through green fields, sat the quiet village of Mbale. The sun rose lazily over the acacia trees each morning, casting golden light on rusted roofs and awakening the rhythm of village life, roosters crowing, women pounding maize, goats bleating, and laughter echoing from barefoot children chasing each other between huts. Among those children were two boys whose names were spoken, almost as one, Zuberi and Kwame. If one was mentioned, the other followed in the same breath. They were born just 2 months apart, their mothers giving birth under the same midwife's hands, and since then it seemed their souls had been tied at the ankle. Zuberi was the quieter of the two, his eyes always full of thought, as though he carried the weight of the world even as a child. He'd sit under the village's giant baobab tree, carving sticks or tracing imaginary paths into the soil. He loved stories. His grandfather told him ancient folk tales about warriors, gods, and forgotten kings. Zuberi listened as if he had lived through those tales before. He was careful, calculated, and kind. Kwame, on the other hand, was fire. Laughter danced on his lips, and trouble always followed him like a mischievous cousin. He was the first to climb the tallest mango trees, the one to dare the others to swim across the deep river when rains made the current wild. He was bold, charming, and fearless. Despite their differences, their bond was iron strong. They shared everything, from roasted groundnuts to secrets whispered in the dark. When Zuberi's father fell ill, Kwame stole herbs from the forest to help. When Kwame's younger sister died of fever, Zuberi sat silently beside him for hours, neither speaking a word, only holding his hand until dawn broke. Villagers often joked, "If one falls in the river, the other will jump in, whether he can, swim or not." At school, the differences between the two boys grew more visible. Zuberi was a natural scholar. He loved books and numbers and quickly became a favorite of teacher Amina, who predicted he would one day leave Mbale and return, in a car, not on foot. Kwame struggled. He could barely sit still for long, always distracted by birds outside the window or ants marching across the floor. But he was clever in his own way. He could fix a broken radio with nothing but a paperclip, knew which herbs cured what, and always found a way to talk himself out of trouble. Even as they aged into their teens, their bond remained unbroken. They made a pact beneath the baobab tree one night as fireflies danced around them. "One day we'll leave this village together," Zuberi said, looking up at the stars. "And build a house for both our families," Kwame added. "We'll rise together," Zuberi whispered. "No matter what," they both said in unison. But life, as always, had its own plans. When Zuberi turned 16, his hard work paid off. He was offered a government scholarship to study in Kampala, the capital. It was a moment of celebration. Drums were beaten, women ululated, and men danced. Mbale had never seen such a thing. One of their own going to the city on merit. Zuberi stood proud but humble, thanking everyone who had supported him. He held Kwame's shoulder and said, "When I make it, I'll come back for you. I promise." Kwame smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Something flickered in his chest that night, a feeling he had never tasted before. Was it sadness? No. It was something bitterer, something colder. Jealousy. He tried to shake it off, but it clung to his skin like sweat. That night, when the village celebrated Zuberi's departure, Kwame sat alone behind the chicken coop, staring at the stars, asking questions no one could answer. Why not me? What about my dreams? Is Zuberi going to forget me once he's surrounded by people who wear shoes and speak English like water? The night air whispered no answers. But in Kwame's heart, something had started to change, something even he didn't fully understand. And that change, slow and silent as a snake in the grass, would one day lead to a moment no one in Mbale would ever forget. Not even the land. Not even the wind. Morning in Mbale had always carried the scent of burning firewood and ripening papayas. But on this particular morning, the air felt heavier, as if the village itself sensed that something important was about to change. Zuberi stood near the rusted bus stop sign, a small bag slung over his shoulder. His mother clutched his hand tightly, her eyes already wet with tears she was trying hard not to shed. His father stood tall beside him, trying to look proud, but his chest rose and fell too quickly, betraying his nerves. The entire village had come to see Zuberi off. Even old Mama Halima, who hadn't left her hut in years, was there, leaning on her cane, whispering prayers under her breath. Drums thudded softly in the background. Children sang a farewell tune, the kind passed down for generations, meant to bless those who leave home for the first time. Zuberi's heart was a tangle of excitement and sorrow. He was going to Kampala, the great capital city, where buildings scraped the clouds and electricity flowed even at night. He would study medicine, become a doctor, and return to build a health center for Mbale. He had seen his people suffer, children dying from diarrhea, women from childbirth, old men from infections that could have been cured by a simple tablet. He had vowed to change that. And yet, when he looked at Kwame, something in him paused. Kwame stood a few steps back from the crowd, arms crossed, a smile on his face, but not in his eyes. They hadn't spoken much since the scholarship was announced. Zuberi had tried. He had brought Kwame fruits from the farm, helped fix his broken bicycle, invited him to sit under the baobab tree as they used to. But Kwame had slowly pulled away, always saying, "I'm busy," or "later." Now, in this final moment, Zuberi broke away from the crowd and walked to his friend. "Say something," Zuberi said, voice soft. "You've barely spoken to me." Kwame looked at him, eyes shadowed. "I'm proud of you, Zuberi." Zuberi tilted his head. "You don't sound proud." "I am," Kwame said, forcing a grin. "You'll go there, become someone big, wear a suit. Me, I'll still be fixing radios and scraping rust off old bicycle chains." Zuberi reached into his pocket and pulled out a small woven bracelet. Red, green, and black threads, colors of their village flag, twisted together. "I made this for you," he said, "so you won't forget me." Kwame stared at it, then reluctantly took it. "I won't forget you," Zuberi added. "When I make it, I'll come back for you. We'll build something together, like we promised." Kwame nodded, but deep inside, something twisted, a part of him wishing Zuberi wouldn't leave at all. The bus coughed and sputtered into the station. Zuberi hugged his parents tightly. Then he turned to Kwame again. "Don't disappear on me," he said. "You're my brother." Kwame smiled faintly, said nothing. The bus roared to life and rolled down the road, kicking up red dust into the morning sky. Zuberi waved until Mbale disappeared behind a veil of sunlight and trees. And just like that, he was gone. Zuberi's letters came regularly at first, long pages filled with descriptions of the city, the noise, the lights, the size of the buildings. He wrote about the library, about professors who had traveled the world, and about students from places he'd never heard of before. He would write, "Kwame, you would love it here. The machines, the buses. I saw a lift that moved like magic." He always ended with, "I miss you, brother." Kwame never wrote back. He read every word, sometimes more than once, but each sentence made him feel smaller. He tried to focus on his own life. He opened a small bicycle repair shed using some savings from his father. He worked hard, from sunrise to sunset, hands covered in grease, back sore from bending over broken chains and tires. He smiled for the customers, laughed with children. But when night fell and he sat alone outside his hut, a silence grew in. Him! The village had changed too. People spoke of Zuberi like a prophet in training. Zuberi will return and build a hospital. Zuberi will bring jobs. Zuberi is making us proud. No one talked about Kwame anymore, not like they used. 2. The last straw came when Teacher Amina visited Kwame's shed. She stood with her arms folded and a kind, tired look on her face. "Why don't you apply for the city trades program?" she asked. "You're gifted with your hands." Kwame shrugged. "No money. No one to recommend me." "I could write a letter." Kwame looked up. "Like the one you wrote for Zuberi?" She paused, unsure how to answer. Kwame wiped the grease off his hands. "Thanks, teacher, but I'm not Zuberi." She didn't reply, just nodded and left. And that night, Kwame took the woven bracelet out from a wooden box under his bed, the one Zuberi had given him, and stared at it. His hands trembled. He didn't know what he hated more, Zuberi for leaving, or himself for not being the one chosen. That night, a storm rolled over Mbale, lightning cracking the sky like broken glass. And somewhere deep inside the shed, as thunder rattled the tin roof, Kwame whispered to himself, "He said he'd come. Back. Let's see if he does." The dry season rolled in like a thief, stealing the last of the village's green. Cracks appeared on the red earth. The river that once sang loudly behind Mbale now whispered, shrinking day by day. Chickens clucked listlessly in the dust, and even the baobab trees stood like silent witnesses to an unspoken tension creeping into the air. It had been 4 years since Zuberi had left for Kampala. 4 years since he hugged his best friend goodbye. 4 years of silence returned for every letter sent. 4 years of echoes that never spoke back. But on this particular evening, as the sun dipped into the horizon, casting fire across the sky, a sound pierced the village that had not been heard in years. The rumble of a polished silver land cruiser, kicking up clouds of dust as it entered Mbale. Children screamed in excitement. Women wiped their hands on aprons and rushed from their huts. Old men straightened their spines, leaning on walking sticks, eyes narrowing toward the machine roaring up the main path. The door opened, and out stepped Zuberi. But he wasn't the same Zuberi who had left 4 years ago. He wore a cream shirt that hugged his now broad shoulders, fine trousers, and black leather shoes that had never seen Mbale's dust. His beard was neatly trimmed, his hair well oiled, and around his neck swung a stethoscope, as if he needed to remind anyone who he had become. There was a gasp, then cheering. "Zuberi is back," someone cried. Women ululated. Men clapped his back. Children tried to touch him, as though his success might rub off on them. And just like that, Mbale came alive. Zuberi smiled, hugged his mother tight, shook his father's trembling hands, and bowed respectfully to the elders. Every eye watched him. Every ear leaned in to hear his next word. Everyone was there. Everyone, except Kwame. That evening, a celebration was thrown. Lanterns were lit, the air filled with the smell of roasted goat and sweet banana beer. Drums beat joyfully, dancers twisted their waists, and storytellers revived old folk tales that had not been told since. Zuberi was a child. But in the shadow beyond the flickering lights, under the mango tree near the old schoolhouse, Kwame watched silently. He had grown taller, leaner, rougher. His hands were harder now, calloused from years of repairing broken things. His clothes were worn but clean. His heart, not so much. He stared at Zuberi's wide smile, at the way the crowd adored him, at the way even Teacher Amina, who once encouraged Kwame, now hovered around Zuberi like a hummingbird drawn to nectar. His mind raced with old memories. The time they ran from the village chief for stealing mangoes. The secret handshake they made up under the baobab tree. The day they both swore to change the village together. And now, here Zuberi was, changing it alone. Late into the night, when the drums slowed and laughter softened into yawns, Zuberi stepped away from the firelight and walked toward the mango tree. He had felt it all night, that missing presence, that silence. He knew where to find him. "Kwame," Zuberi said softly. Kwame didn't look at him. "You still remember my name?" Zuberi sighed. "Don't do this." "Do what?" Kwame's voice was calm but sharp. "I'm just standing, here, watching the king return to his kingdom. I never wanted to be a king. You know that. You left me here. I left because I had to. You know that too. I stayed because I had no choice." Zuberi walked closer. "I wrote you." "I read them," Kwame said, still staring into the dark. "All of them. Even the ones where you said, 'We'll build something together.'" Zuberi's voice cracked. "We still can." Kwame finally turned, and in that moment, something had shifted. His eyes were not angry, not even sad. They were hollow, like something inside had gone missing. "You built something without me," Kwame said. "Now you want to remember your promise. But promises don't grow in dust. They die." Zuberi stepped closer. "You're my brother." Kwame smiled faintly. "No," he said. "We were brothers. Now, we're just memories wearing the same name." Before Zuberi could respond, Kwame walked away, disappearing into the shadows like a ghost. Zuberi lay in his old room, staring at the ceiling. The village outside had gone quiet. Even the crickets seemed to sleep. But then, a sound, a rustling, a whisper of movement. Zuberi sat up. The door creaked. He moved to the window and peered outside. There, near the shed where he had hidden his old childhood toys, was a figure. He stepped out slowly. "Hello?" No answer. He walked toward the shed. The door was open. Inside, things were scattered. Boxes tipped over, cloth torn, and a strange smell, like burning oil. And then he saw it. A photo, torn in half. It had once been a picture of him and Kwame, aged 10, arms around each other, grinning in front of the baobab tree. Now, only Zuberi's half remained. His hand trembled, and somewhere in the dark, he heard something else. A whisper, so low, it could have been the wind, or something worse. "You should have never come back." Morning rose slowly in Mbale, brushing golden strokes across the tops of huts and warming the clay-red soil. But the warmth did not reach Zuberi's heart. He sat on the old stool outside his childhood home, staring at the torn photo in his hand, the one where Kwame's half was missing. The village was still waking. Children chased goats. Women fetched water. A rooster somewhere refused to quit its crowing. Life continued as if nothing had happened, but something had. Something had shifted. Something dark had begun to move beneath the surface. That day, Zuberi made a decision. He walked into the heart of Mbale with a paper rolled under his arm and a voice full of purpose. At the village square, he stood before the elders. "I want to build a health center," Zuberi said. "Right here, for Mbale. So, no child has to die from fever again. No mother gives birth on the floor. No man loses a leg because he couldn't afford medicine." He unrolled the paper, a blueprint, huts with solar panels, clean beds, a waiting room, a small pharmacy. It was beautiful. It was hopeful. The elders looked at each other, nodding slowly. "This is good," said Elder Tumbo. "But you'll need help." "I'll pay for the materials," Zuberi said. "But I want to hire our own people, Mbali people. I want Kwame to lead the labor." A few murmurs rose. "You think he'll accept?" someone asked. "I believe he will," Zuberi replied, his voice laced with quiet hope. "He's still my brother." That afternoon, Zuberi visited the old repair shop where Kwame worked alone. The smell of oil and rust filled the air. Sparks flew from a machine he was fixing. Kwame didn't look up. Zuberi cleared his throat. "I'm building a health center. I want you to lead the workers." Silence. "I trust you," Zuberi added. "Like old times." Kwame didn't turn around. His voice was calm but cold. "Why do you always act like this? Like you've come to save the village? You think you're better than the rest of us?" "No," Zuberi said quietly. "I just want us to rise together." Kwame stopped working. Turned slowly. "Together?" he scoffed. "We were never equals. You had books. I had bricks. You had dreams. I had repairs. You had the world. I had this." Gestured at the grease-stained shop. "You left, Zuberi, and you became something without me." Zuberi stepped closer. "You could still become more. With me." For a moment, something flickered in Kwame's eyes. A memory? A wound? A longing? But then it vanished. "Leave," Kwame said, turning away. "And take your blueprints with you." Zuberi moved forward with the project anyway. He hired 10 young men from the village. Laid the foundation. Poured hope into every brick. But late at night, strange things began to happen. A shipment of cement went missing. Tools were found broken, snapped in ways that didn't make sense. One worker claimed to have seen someone sneaking around the site at night but couldn't say who. Zuberi tried to stay calm. He doubled the night guards, replaced stolen tools, but the setbacks became more frequent. Then, one evening, while inspecting the site, he noticed something buried beneath the bricks. A charm wrapped in black cloth and tied with red thread. A curse token. His heart sank. Someone wanted this project to die. Across the village, Kwame watched silently from the porch of his shop. Word had spread of the sabotage, of the cursed object, of the health center now days behind schedule. He sat still, expression unreadable. Beside him lay a small iron box. He opened it. Inside were things most men had forgotten. An old friendship. Bracelet from Zuberi. Faded but intact. A drawing they made at age 10 of Mbale Hospital sketched with crayons. And a letter, Zuberi's first, dated 4 years ago. Kwame read the letter once more. "I know you'll say I've changed, Kwame, but I hope you know that everything I become, I owe to our beginnings. I haven't forgotten you. I never will." Zuberi, his hand trembled. He closed the box. But the darkness inside him was louder now. Not because he hated Zuberi, but because he hated that Zuberi still loved him. It was easier to fight a villain than to forgive a brother. And in the depths of that darkness, a decision was made. The health center was nearly done. 1 more week. Just 1 more. But on the 6th night, the villagers awoke to a sound that tore through the silence like thunder from the gods. Boo! The sky lit up. Flames shot into the night. People screamed. Zuberi ran barefoot to the site, his chest pounding. Smoke rose like a giant serpent, twisting toward the stars. The building, the health center, his dream, was in ruins. Windows blown out. The roof partially collapsed. Ash falling like black rain and painted in charcoal letters across the wall. Were the words, "Leave before the village burns too." Zuberi stood frozen. Something inside him broke. Not just his project, not just his effort, but the last, trembling hope that Kwame might still choose brotherhood. Because as he turned around, breathless and bleeding from his arm, he saw a shadow, standing just beyond the trees. Watching. Not running, not helping, just watching. and though he couldn't see the face clearly, he knew. He knew who it was. The sun rose over Mbele as it always did, casting golden rays across the charred remains of what was supposed to be the village's beacon of hope, the health center. But instead of hope, there was only ash. Villagers gathered in silence, their eyes darting between the wreckage and Zuberi, who stood covered in soot and sorrow. Nobody spoke, not even the elders. The message painted in black still haunted the wall. Leave before the village burns too. But Zuberi didn't leave. Not yet. By midday, rumors spread like wildfire. Some blamed outsiders, some whispered about witchcraft, but many eyes turned toward Kwame. Not because they had proof, but because they remembered the silence, the tension, the jealousy. Elder Tumbo called for a village gathering under the baobab tree. Zuberi arrived last. His arm was bandaged, his spirit less so. "Zuberi," the elder said gravely, "if you have anything to say, now is the time." Zuberi looked around. Faces he grew up with, mothers who once fed him, boys he played football with. They all waited. He stepped forward. "I came back to give something to Mbale," he began softly. "Not because I am better, but because I never stopped loving this place." A pause. "Somewhere along the way, my success became a sin. My dreams, an insult, and a brother I cherished became a stranger," the crowd murmured. "I won't name names," he said, turning toward the trees. "Because deep down, the one who did this knows what they've done. And I still remember the boy who once shielded me from bullies, who skipped meals so I could eat. That boy is still inside the man who burned this place." He took a deep breath. "I will rebuild. But not here, not where love has become a threat." Then he looked directly at the trees, where a figure stood just beyond the edge of shadow. Zuberi turned and walked away. No anger, no revenge. Only silence. And sometimes silence hurts more than screams ever could. That night, Kwame returned home, to find his mother on the veranda. She was crying. She held something in her hands, Zuberi's friendship bracelet, the one Kwame thought he had thrown away. "Why?" she whispered. He couldn't speak. "I raised 2 sons in one house, one by birth, one by bond. And today, the one I birthed destroyed the one I should have protected." Her words hit harder than fire ever could. Kwame fell to his knees. Tears ran down his face. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," he mumbled. "I just wanted him to hurt, like I did, all those years." "But you didn't just burn a building," she said. "You burned trust. You burned what little was left of you." She handed him the bracelet and walked inside, leaving him alone. For the first time, truly alone. The next morning, as the village prepared for their day, a strange sound echoed through the square. A loudspeaker crackled. It was coming from the very site where the health center had burned. A microphone stood, and beside it, a speaker. Zuberi had left behind, still intact. Then came a voice. Kwame's voice. Broadcast to every ear in Mbale. "My name is Kwame. Son of this soil, I was once a boy who believed in dreams. I let jealousy poison my heart, and I became what I never wanted to be." The crowd gathered. "I burned the health center. I cursed the one person who loved me despite my failures. I broke the heart of a brother I never deserved." Silence. "And today, I do not ask for forgiveness. I only ask that you never become like me." Then the microphone clicked off. 3 days later, a letter arrived at Zuberi's home in the neighboring village. Handwritten, by Kwame. Zuberi, I don't know how to unburn what I've destroyed. I only know that you were the fire that gave light, and I, the shadow that tried to swallow it. You said once that real brothers fight, then forgive, but I think I've fought too long. If you never speak to me again, I'll understand, but I want you to know. The health center will be rebuilt. By me. With my hands. Whether the village helps or not. It's the only way I'll forgive myself. Kwame. A new health center now stands in Mbale. Simple, yet strong. At its entrance is a plaque that reads, Built by two brothers, one who dreamed and one who remembered how to. Kwame now lives in the health center compound. He's not a hero. He's not a villain. He's just healing. As for Zuberi, he visits from time to time, quietly, without crowds. Sometimes the two sit under the baobab tree in silence. Nothing needs to be said anymore. Because some wounds speak louder when left unspoken, and some stories end, not in fireworks, but in forgiveness.